Well, again, welcome back. We told you we'll be discussing the subject matter of the economy, particularly related to inflation, the factors that are used or account for recording inflation or measuring inflation. We'll look at the various items in the basket that are used as well. And then, of course, we'll try and climax or wrap up the conversation with all the narrative about the renaming of the Kotoka International Airport. It's being changed to the Accra International Airport. A lot of mixed reactions so far. But then we have Shamima Muslim, who is here. Shamima, good morning to you, Presidential Staff, Lead Communication. What's your right position?
It's Deputy Presidential Spokesperson.
Deputy Presidential Spokesperson, Shamima. Yes. Thank you for joining us for that discussion. So when we begin the discussion, we're going to have Rodley Nayana in the studio as well. Hajia will also be joining us. So we'll have some comprehensive conversations. We'll also bring on board Dr. Edusa Kodie, the Economics Department of the University of Ghana. He's also a consultant, not only teaches economics as well. So please make sure you stick and stay right here. But in the meantime, let's hear from the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Siama. And then we had some other reactions from the Member of Parliament for the Member of Parliament for Ofansi Arabi as well. But instead, let's hear from the government statistician.
It is the lowest inflation rate recorded since the CPI rebasing in 2021. This sustained decline signals that Ghana is firmly on a path towards price stability. Government, it's important to sustain the fiscal discipline, continue efforts to stabilize food prices, and invest in storage, irrigation, transport, and market access to reduce regional disparity.
As I'm hearing that figure, I'm also getting a lot of messages from people who are saying that what they see on the market doesn't exactly correspond with that. I'm sure when the government statistician appears before us, we'll have an opportunity to interrogate the data that they have and match it to what is really happening in the market. Many of your viewers and listeners, they buy from the markets, and they will be the best judges to tell us whether what they're experiencing on the market is 3.8% or not. What the government is doing to achieve these inflationary targets is not actually tackling the supply side. It's actually sterilizing a lot of money from the system. You recall that around October, we told you that the government has sterilized about 60 billion Ghana cedis from the system. In other words, that money is being sucked out of the economy, so people who want to use it to, conduct transactions can't even access it. So it's one thing they're doing it on the demand side and telling you, therefore, that inflation is down to 3.8. But when you go to the market, you see the real rate.
Well, that's it. And the body you saw there was Dr. Susan Iduamankwa, who will be joining us very soon. But we have Dr. Owusu Kodie. No, Edusa Kodie. I think that's the right name, right? Dr. Edusa Kodie.
Edu Owusu Kodie.
Edu Owusu Kodie. Edu Owusu Kodie. Thank you.
You've been interviewing me, sir. You don't know my name.
My name is Owusu Kawonte. Edu Owusu. All right, but you and I have had these conversations over the years on the subject matter of inflation. But my candid question I have to ask you, which is also laced with very much opinion, is that, I mean, irrespective of how the rates are, the point is that players as well as forces within the economy still have on the back of their mind a lot of uncertainties. That's why usually consumers at the end of the bargain don't tend to witness these drastic effects reflecting on the prices of their goods and services they consume. Is that not it?
Yeah, first of all, the answer to your question lies in the disaggregated analysis. We must understand that when we say inflation rate has fallen, we are not talking about, generally a fall in price. All we are saying that, generally speaking, the rate at which prices increase has slowed down. So last year, January 2025, inflation rate was 23.5, and now it's 3.8. So if you compare the two, in other words, between 2024 January and 2025, general price level increased by 23.5. But between January 2025 and January 2026, general price level increased by just 3.8. So there's still an increase. So let's understand that. Secondly, the disaggregated level that I mentioned earlier would also give us a very good picture. The regional breakdowns. It's interesting to see that there are about 16 regions in the country. 8 have relatively lower inflation than the national average of 3.8. And another 8, which is half. Another 8 also have higher inflation, higher than 3.8. So those regions with inflation higher than the national average of 3.8, i.e., I think the northeast is having 11.2. So if you interview people in the northeast region, they will tell you that their inflation is 11.2, and that is higher than the national average of 3.8. The other regions are Volta region, Eastern region, and the rest. So these are the 3 top regions with the highest inflation in the country. So when you interview them, they will tell you that their inflation is higher than the national average. In the same vein, when you interview those at the bottom, those with the lower inflation than the national average, i.e., people of Savannah's inflation is negative 2.6. So Savannah region is actually experiencing a reduction in price, general price level of 2.6. That's negative 2.6. And the other regions having relatively lower inflation than the national average are Upper East, Bruno East, and the Northern region and Greater Accra. But something is striking me that Upper East and Northeast are both regions in the northern part of the country. One is, and even Savannah, so one is experiencing the highest inflation, the region with the highest inflation in Ghana, and the other is experiencing the region with the lowest inflation in Ghana. And so this Upper East Savannah analysis is interesting. I think we have to visit there and know the dynamics. Why Upper East is having the highest inflation in Ghana of 11.2. The Northeast is having the highest inflation in Ghana of 11.2, whereas their neighbor, Savannah, is having the lowest inflation of negative 2.6 in Ghana. Another disaggregated level that will help us understand why some people feel it and others do not feel it, or some will question the figure and some will also say it's not reflecting in their reality, is the district level analysis. I'm sure the statistician went to the district level to collect data in those various markets. So whereas we have the national, the regional disparities, we also have the district disparities in inflation figures. Another way of answering your question is through the disaggregated items, the items that we consume. So you realize that based on the item that you consume most, you feel the positive impact of the reduction more than someone. For instance, transport inflation is in the negatives. We all have witnessed a reduction in fuel price recently. So when you consume more of transport, your inflation will be relatively lower, like in the negative, than somebody who is consuming sports and recreation. So let me mention some of the, this is the month-on-month. The fruits and nuts are having highest month-on-month inflation. So fruit, vegetables, food and non-food, alcoholic, oil and fat, water. These are items with the very high inflation month-on-month. Then those down there, fruits and vegetable juice, again, cereal products, fish, and other seafood, they are having negative month-on-month inflation. So back to the answer to your question, that depending on what you are, first of all, depending on your region, where you reside, and in addition to that, depending on the item that you consume the most, the inflation that we are talking about will be positive on someone's pocket and it will be negative on another person's pocket. So everybody is right, and we should not politicize this. I think it's a good way of assessing the cost of living in the country. And so let's put politics aside and analyze the issue, maybe as I have done going forward.
Okay. It's very instructive that we do that as well. There's a question I'll be asking you, and it's also related to, is there any relationship by way of the reduction in the value chain of the number of intermediaries between the consumer and then the goods that they buy, that also tend to influence the prices. In relation to what we pick on the market, even as a media entity, about maybe supposed reductions in imported items like rice, vegetable oil, among many others, compared to perhaps items that also have been measured in the basket that are produced right here in Ghana?
Yes, there's a positive relationship. You find the answer in the positive correlation between the exchange rate and the inflation rate. So, period. I mean, if you read any economic textbook and any analysis, they will show you a positive correlation between inflation rate and the exchange rate, such that anytime the exchange rate goes up, or when the city depreciates, you see high inflation rate, and vice versa. That when exchange rate is high, because our economy is still import dependent, most of the items that we consume in the country are produced outside and imported into the country. So when the businessman is going to use more cedis for the same dollar, when they come to Ghana, they will also want profit, so they'll increase their prices.
Yeah.
And you find inflation rate going up. Local inflation is also calculated. What we call local inflation is somewhat foreign, because the inputs that we use, for example, even if you produce tomatoes locally, the fertilizer that you use to produce the local tomatoes is imported. So some of the intermediaries and some of the inputs that we use, like tractors, pesticides, most of these things are still imported into the country. If we take the fertilizer we use in the country, like more than 90% are imported into the country. And it's a shame on us. I think we should do better than this and going forward. So again, yes, there's that positive correlation between the inflation, and then you call it the pass-through effect of inflation, of the exchange rate on inflation. And it comes to the same thing that I talked about earlier. Depending on what you consume most, depending on the item which carries more weight on your budget,
Okay.
that inflation will be felt differently.
Well, so apart from Shamima, I have Rodal Ayana, the public interest advocate. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. Yeah. And then Hajia Gloria Menu. I haven't had an interaction with you before. I see you on the sideline, so good to have you.
Good to have you.
Great, great.
Good morning.
You look elegant. You're with the United Party?
Yes,
Okay,
always
great.
yellow.
Yeah, I see the colors.
Yes.
I should have been in yellow. What do you think?
Yeah, it could have been an addition. Yeah.
Also, you could addition.
Addition, yes.
It's another type of yellow.
And
Yes,
then
there's another yellow. Shemima is supporting me.
Susanna Mankwa, Dr. Susanna Mankwa, Executive Secretary, Edua Mankwa, National Interest Movement, but also a pharmacist by profession. And good to have you once again.
Nice to see you again, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, many appearances. So Shamima, how are you grappling with this? You don't have it easy as government spokespeople, whether you're deputy or the lead, or you're beside the president or not beside the president, or you do the strategy or not on social media at all. The narrative is that we're not feeling it in our pocket. You know that old adage?
It's an old rehashed narrative, but the reality is there for all of us to see. Let me say good morning to all our viewers also, and to just briefly indicate that President Mahama, because of these matters, has been engaged in a general resetting agenda. Because you see, these indicators that we speak about, they are there for a reason, isn't it? Inflation is one of the most significant economic indicators in every economy. So the figures do matter. We cannot pretend that inflation figures do not matter at all. And I'm happy that you have spoken to the economist who has laid a foundation for understanding, because this morning, as I was listening to you, I recognized two things immediately. That whereas we continue to speak about media literacy for the general populace, we need to also amplify economic literacy as well as financial literacy for the average Ghanaian to understand how the economy works and how the economy impacts on their everyday life. Those kinds of education is essential if we are to carry the country along President Mohammed's Resetting Ghana agenda. He was in Dubai recently, and as we speak, he is in Zambia. And all of these global, regional, movements and actions that he is leading, the Accra Reset, is to reimagine where we are now and to, again, ask ourselves about what sovereignty means. The president believes that the current rule-based system is collapsing, and at the World Government Summit in Dubai, he called for a reimagining of alliances. Because obviously, old alliances are falling apart, and there are implications for many African nations who often, bear the huge brunt of whatever global order emerges. So whereas we are talking about resetting Ghana and resetting the foundations of our economy, we're also speaking now through the leadership of President John Dramani Mahama. Ghana turns 70 years, next year. President Mahama is going to head, God willing, the AU chair position next year. We cannot begin to think ourselves as outside of the problems that are, playing out in the global, scheme of affairs. So I wanted to just, again, let Ghanaians know that it is a unique opportunity for all of us to be honest with each other. Governments, people, political actors. A unique opportunity because as Ghana turns 70 years, and with all the problems we have had, and what is happening in the global, stage, where we are seeing a disintegration of the rule-based trade system, and, curiously enough, a Canadian Prime Minister, I was even showing you the video, has had cause to actually concede, concede that the intendment behind the 1945 setting up the Bretton Woods, institutions and the IMF was never really to ensure a consistent fair trade between nations, and that they were aware even at the onset that strong nations will always exempt themselves when the system no longer works for them. And President Mohammed's call is that we will no longer sit and wait and sit aloof as an African continent, whereas this new evolving order is happening without having seats at the table. And that's why he's doing a lot of these regional visitations. And again, Ghana has always been a leader within the sub-region. So, spiritually, whatever it is just an opportune moment that President Mahama is present at this time, that this new opportunity to reset our economy and also our continent and also contribute more viably to the global world order is happening at a time that Ghana has a president that seems to, relate favorably amongst, the Committee of Nations and leaders within the sub-region. That is confidence in the role that Ghana can and should play. And we as Ghanaians must ready ourselves, both internally and externally. So I call for honesty, because these things that we are seeing, human factors play a key role, and it is one of the most unpredictable factors when you're dealing with, economic matters. I want to particularly call for mention the government statistician, Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu. If you see and you observe what they're doing currently, there seems to be a certain proactiveness on the side of government statistician to educate the Ghanaian people on data and what data should mean. When these things happen, I have been listening to him, and I would like to encourage all of us to visit the social media pages of, the Ghana Statistical Service and also the government statistician. He puts out videos explaining these, statistics and what they mean and the data, and that is an essential, knowledge point for all of us to understand what is happening in our economy. Government Minister Felix Kwachi posted a number of things on his page, to which the NPP Miracles Abuaji came to retort. And you can see consistently that it is the pattern of the minority to reshape or move the conversation into how are you feeling inflation in your pocket? And I'm very happy with the education you gave this morning, because when we are talking, what we are actually experiencing is disinflation and not inflation. At a point in 2022, Ghana experienced hyperinflation, 54%. That was the rate of increase in the average, price of goods and services. So I buy a phone today, tomorrow I go to the market, the phone would have increased by 3 or so times. It was unpredictable, it was steep, and it's distorted, the planning of many families. Many families had to reprioritize what their, priority, expense items were supposed to be. It eroded people's savings, because when your good or service that you have to, use doesn't lend itself to elasticity, you have to buy at whatever price that is in the market. Food was one of such very essential, commodity for everyone. And so we saw that, and because a lot of our food was also imported, and the dollar was that steep at that time, from the IMF program to the DDE program that we went, the economy had literally collapsed. And when the minority insists that, oh, but we brought inflation to 23% upon our exit in 2024, what they forget is that they had moved Ghana into a debt exchange program that, because of the economy, were in an IMF program. So they obviously did not have any option than to follow the strict terms of the program. It meant they were not paying any debt. And today, they say that they left this and they left that. We left them 3 oil fields. Roland, ask them what they did with all the resources that they got in the debt. They received the highest amount of revenues in comparison to all governments since Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. But when they left, the independent power producers were almost at the brink of collapse. When they left, Cocoa Board was at the brink of collapse. Yesterday, you were speaking about Cocoa Board's situation and why we are not able to mop up, the products and for this buying season. The reality is that they did so much harm to this economy, and yet, when they were able to manage inflation to single digits, they screamed themselves hoarse. So if it's not a positive thing that a country that has experienced these kinds of volatilities in the past is today consistently 13 months on seeing a steady decline in inflation, which means that you can properly plan, you would know that when you go into the market, you're not going to be shocked by, steep increase in prices of your basic goods and services. And they want to distort that to say that, yes, if people say that we want to feel 3.8% inflation in our pockets, they are right. They are right because what they have felt is the shock of hyperinflation. And because today they are not feeling the shock of hyperinflation, they would
says that it's the ordinary consumer who not only will be the one who measures the moment of truth, but also shares a testimony as to whether they are feeling it in their pockets by way of the rate.
And the ordinary consumer, if the ordinary consumer is honest, has been sharing those experiences, because generally, prices of goods, even towards December, when we thought we were going to see, unreasonable increases in prices, this was when the market women were telling us that maize products had come down, grains generally, rice, even imported rice, had come down steeply, oil. And these are the basic staples. So if you look at it, the basic staples, especially for imported products, has seen a steady decline in the rates of price increases. So inflation is not that there's not going to be price increases. What we are experiencing is inflation. It is positive and it is lowering because of all the incentives and all the initiatives that government is putting in, the strong fiscal, management of our resources and the prudent management of our resources, not spending what we cannot afford to spend and throwing too much money into the system, plugging the loopholes. You see, Ghana is a gateway to money laundering. A lot of money comes into this country, and you can't trace from which productivity avenues those amounts of money comes. So when you experience that there's a lot of money in the system and yet we don't have accompanying productivity. So when you do inflation targeting in these kinds of scenarios, what you do is try to mop up the excess money in the system.
Right.
It is just the first step, never an end. And President Mahama hasn't said so. And the managers of our economy haven't said that bringing inflation to 3.8 means that we have reached the promised land. It is the first step to consolidating the reliefs that Ghanaians want. And if you look around, fuel prices have come down, basic goods and services have come down, and Ghana is also now moved from a junk status into a B+, which is a positive
Madam Ayana, at the end of the day,
the future is bright.
The minority and those who tend to criticize or are very heavy on the side of criticism for government for espousing these achievements say that complementarily, you have the dollar also doing very well, appreciating against, or the CD appreciating against the US dollar as well as the other major trading currencies. And so, by way of how they need to complement each other, these indicators, all in all, should reduce or result in drastic reduction of prices of items over time. And that should be a testimony that ordinary consumers should be able to attest to. And so that is the thrust of the argument, is that not it?
Good morning to our cherished viewers, and also good morning to all of us here.
Yeah, good morning.
I think that what the minority is saying is nothing new. It is something that you hear from everybody, that prices should have gone down by now, certain prices, especially the food basket. But somehow we sometimes forget that a lot of our foods too are seasonal items.
In terms of those that are produced locally as well.
In terms of those that are produced locally. So if you are going to buy garden eggs, or you're going to buy okra, you're going to buy maize or cassava, it comes at a certain time. There are times that things are very cheap, and there are times that at least the price goes up a little bit. And it all has to do with the way our climate is. But I think that generally prices are not going down because people have just intentionally decided not to bring down prices. People are still waiting and telling themselves that how sure are we that this price is good, this dollar exchange rate is going to stay for a longer time. So they kind of like feel like, well, let's just stick to this. And you hear the other excuse like, I bought this before the dollar rate came down. I bought it at 16 or 17. So if it's now 10 or 11, I can't sell it any lower until my old stock is out. You understand? But that doesn't make sense. Because for perishables, you know that you are not storing anything. So you can't tell me that tomatoes or okra or garden eggs or kontomire, you can't reduce. You understand? And one thing with us is that once we get to the dry season and things are expensive, when the rains also come, we still stick to the old prices. We don't come down. You see, when we talk about the costs of food, I always say that it's a very subjective matter. You see, when you go to the market and you decide that you want to buy a tuber of yam, you have a choice of price. Are you buying puna? Are you buying larboko? Are you buying dente? Are you buying the afasie? You understand? All these ones have prices, but they're all yam. So if you get to the market, you buy what you can afford. But if you decide to say that I want to eat puna, when you know that puna is way expensive, more than the white yam or the dente, then it means that you have a problem. And when we come to our locally produced items, say the rice, for instance, people say Ghana rice is expensive. But Ghana rice is good rice. Most of the rice that is coming, the imported rice, most of them, some of them are 20 years old, 10 years old, very starchy and all that. Until we learn to eat the things that we grow, and then at least cut down on the importations, we will always have that problem of thinking that things are still very expensive. We have oils, the different types of oils. That
the vegetable oils.
The vegetable
so-called
oils. To driving cost of living. Because people are beginning to think that, look, you hear this is organic, so I want to buy maybe okra, and then I'm told that it is sprayed a day before it is harvested, and it's bad for me. Definitely when I get to the market, I might not buy it. I'll be looking for another avenue. So I hear that somebody is growing okra, and that person says, this is organic. You understand? And 1 kilo for the organic is going maybe for 30 cedis, and the one that is in the market, 1 kilo, is going for 10 cedis. I would definitely, if I'm thinking of my health, go and buy the organic, because it's more expensive to go to the hospital than to just go and buy your organic. So with all the chemicals that are also being put in our fruits, Ghanaians have a taste bud for apples, which we don't grow in Ghana. We find ourselves buying apples. We find ourselves buying the pears. We find ourselves buying the peaches and all the other things that is imported. And we complain. And majority of us who get the opportunity to be on the media are those that are guilty of these things. We are the ones who buy the apples. We are the ones who buy the kiwis and the...
You mean those of us complaining on social media?
Exactly. We are the ones who buy those things. Because ordinarily, Ghanaians will buy oranges from the market, from by the roadside and all that. But we are now beginning to think that bananas even are not safe because carbide is used to make them ripe and all that. Yes, apples, with pineapples.
Carbide?
Yes, and pineapples. So many things that are happening to our food chain. And we are worried about that. So when it comes to the prices of food and things, you take all these things into consideration.
Okay.
And you look at even the meat that people buy. You have fresh meat, and then you have the frozen, which is all fatty, full of all kinds of chemicals to maintain the color, to maintain the texture, to maintain the taste and all that. That also is another. So which one are we really out for now? Is it to buy the substandard goods that are coming from outside, or to promote ours that is more organic and sometimes better?
Okay.
And I'm looking at the fact that we should look at processing and preservation of our foods. This will help us. But as for the 3.8, I don't think a lot of people understand what it means. And if you're going to talk about market economics, the market women and the traders, they know more about it.
They are the best.
They are the best people because they decide at every time that you go to the market, they decide what price to give to what item. And then we are the receiving end. So for me, I think that government has to do a little bit more. We have to educate people more, communicate more. We sit here and we talk about it in English. I don't know how many times we are able to communicate in our local dialects for people out there to understand.
Well, we have local language stations as well,
Well,
and they tend to do the education.
Well, if they do, then that's also fine, because that should be able to fizzle down to the ordinary market women, even though I must admit that market women are not illiterate these days.
Okay. But Professor Edo Ususakwadi, at the end of the day, the decision-making within the value chain of how prices and what prices are set is left to competition, is that not it? And is that not why we're where we are? We can't control the prices. We're not in a price-controlled regime. It's a free market economy, as you people say.
Yes, but before GTech comes after me, I am not a professor yet. I'm still a doctor.
Sorry. I retract. Doctor. Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie.
Yes, sir. Right. So it's interesting to listen to my colleagues in the studio, how they have also brought down the conversation to very, understandable language in that sense. One thing I will add to what they've said is the difference between the consumer price index and the producer price index. And the December 2025 producer price index is 1.9, and then inflation was, I think, 5.5% or 5.1%. In other words, if you use farming or food as an example, the inflation at the farm gate is 1.9. The inflation by the time it gets to the market is 5.1. So the price difference is always there. What the farmer is selling is always different from what we buy on the market. In that gap, the middlemen and women always play a key role. Transportation, storage, all play a key role in analyzing the difference between the PPI and the CPI. Yeah, back to your issue on competition. Yes, Ghana is practicing a deregulated regime. We have moved from price control, even with the fuel, the export fuel that we buy, except that government has some taxes and levies on the fuel, but the whole exercise is deregulated. The OMCs, based on the happenings on the international crude oil price, they determine their prices. If you go to the market and you want to buy mineral water, there's Vortic, there's Belacqua, there's that. So if one of the minerals is higher than the other, you have to go for the one you want, the one you can afford. So competition can bring prices down, and competitions can also even increase prices based on the kind of market in which you find yourself. If you're in a monopoly market, you face little competition, so you can be increasing your prices up here and there. If you are in a monopolistic competition, if you are in the media, like we have TV3, we have other TV stations, you are competing. And depending on your content, the price, even some people may still buy an item with a higher price. They even see price as a signal of quality, like the luxurious goods, like watch. If somebody goes to the market to buy a wristwatch, and the person doesn't know the differences in the brands, he is tempted to buy or attach quality to the wristwatch, which is of a higher price. So all these dynamics play a role in the price analysis. Another thing that Honorable Sharima mentioned, which I think is important, is the price elasticity of demand. In other words, how do you respond to price changes with your consumption? If for a particular good, you are unable to find substitutes, even the price rises, you still consume that item. So you find out that those items, their prices are maybe a little higher than those that you can find substitutes. That goes with lower price elasticity of demand. So all these dynamics play a key role. But in my conclusion, I would say that generally speaking, a lower inflation is good for an economy. It's an indicative of a lower cost of living in the country. It's one of the macro figures that we look at when we are assessing the health of every economy: GDP, inflation, exchange rate, and the rest. But we must be mindful of the cost, the sacrifice that we are making to keep that. If the inflation is coming, if it's coming from the natural happenings in the economy and not somebody sacrificing money supply or sacrificing something, then it is good. We must also try to address the structural challenges that we have in the economy. I would say that our economy is still vulnerable, and therefore, if anything happens, if there's any geopolitical tension, if there's any external shock, we are likely to feel the impact heavily. And therefore, we must look within and strengthen the internal structures that we have. I mentioned that even with the local inflation, it still has some element of imported inflation, because what we call locally produced items, the intermediaries or the inputs, are still imported. For instance, many people bake bread in the country, so you might think that bread is locally produced, but the flour, the wheat flour, which is used to produce the bread, is imported from Ukraine. And when there was war in 2022, the bakers were still complaining that when they changed the flour, their consumers were complaining. They have developed taste for the wheat flour from Ukraine. So all these dynamics come to play. But going forward, let's strengthen our transport system, have good roads, build our storage facilities so that in the bumper harvest, we can store and release them in the lean season. And let's try to tackle all the domestic challenges, especially the inputs that are used for food production. Fertilizer. On my table, on my desk, I will mention fertilizer. Let's make an effort as a country and at least try to produce 50% of the fertilizer we use in the country. Because when there's any shock, we are still exposed to exchange rate vulnerabilities, and that will come back to feed into inflation. And we don't want that. We don't want to go back to the dark days of where we experience a high inflation of 54%. We want to keep this as a country. We want to keep it low. And then going forward, maybe the government can have a right mix of the fiscal policy and the monetary policy as we have now. But the cost of the inflation should be very key. We should look at it very well.
Okay.
Thank you.
You taught the politicians, right?
Yes.
So they have the same knowledge that you're espousing now. But why is it that they don't tend to reiterate that to support the argument in the public domain? It's not for you to answer, so don't worry. Go have
some of them do. Some of them do. Some of them do proper economic analysis.
Yeah, well, true. Have a good lecture morning, okay?
Thank you.
What are you teaching next?
I'm going to teach economy of Ghana.
You see?
Talking about everything about
see,
Ghana. In fact, inflation is one of my topics. I will teach it somewhere in the next 4 lecture periods.
Okay.
I will teach, and I'll pick the data from Ghana Statistical Service and teach my students with it. And teach them that when they become politicians, they should analyze the issue just as I've taught them.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie is always on hand to help us do deep research analysis, and he's very dispassionate. He doesn't care whether it's MPP or NDC. Yeah, I remember during the MPP time, he made an argument for and against free SHS and welfare expenditure, and MPP came at him, NDC came at him at some point in time. So, but Dr. Susan Edu-Amankwa, at the end of the day, we say this light-heartedly that we're not feeling it in our pockets, but when you have a sustained period of inflationary trend that seem to go downwards, that de-inflation, then it helps. It helps for better planning, etc. It also gives a lot of confidence to the players to be able to plan better. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Okay. So how then do we make sure that we situate the argument very well within the public domain?
Well, I mean, Shamima said it, more education. People have to understand that when we say inflation has gone down, it just means that prices are not increasing in such a way that you get into a panic. Today you go to the market, something that was 5 cedis. The following day you go to the market, it's 7 cedis. At least now it tends to be, relatively the same, or even if there's an increase, it is still within your budget if you plan plus or minus a cedi or more. So I think that we need to understand that, or we need to understand it in the reverse, that your salary erodes slowly. So your salary is not the same, but it's eroding slower than it would at first. And so the changes may not be perceptible. They may be very minor. But I mean, if you actually sat down to think it through, then maybe you may find that, okay, I'm making savings here, or I'm able to afford something that previously I would not have been able to buy. I think for us, most of us don't actually sit and do a proper budget, what we are doing. And so we need a lot more training on how to handle our personal finances, Then that's when we may see where the slight changes are occurring. I mean, let's say that for those of us who drive, we are in a slightly different economic bracket. And you find out that if you were filling your car with petrol at 900 cedis, now you can fill it at 600.
Your car, how much were you filling it?
My car's filling is between 600 and 700. Now I'm filling it between 500. And I'm feeling good about it, because I'm filling it and I'm going up and about. So that extra 200,
and when you finish it, you can decide to even top it up, kind of.
Yeah, okay. You understand. So that extra 200 is a saving for me. If I was planning properly, I could use that extra 200 because my salary hasn't changed. You understand? My salary hasn't changed. I was filling my tank for 700 cedis. I'm filling it now for 500 cedis. That extra 200 then goes to something else that probably at first I would not have been able to afford. You understand? So these are the changes that are going on, and people just need to be taught how to measure some of these changes. I agree with Rhoda. We need to look at storage, storing more of our indigenous foods, that we need to go to the CSIRs. They have a food research institute. I mean, go take that research and see how we can store our foods in such a way that we can eat them when they are out of season. Because we know that in that inflation basket, a lot of it is food inflation. You understand? And people in this country, I mean, we are living virtually hand to mouth. So food is an extremely important aspect of inflation. And so we would hope that all the research and the work that has done into food storage and into different packaging of foods will be put to bear and not be sitting in academic institutions. You understand? And then we need to sort of diversify our indigenous food and what we eat. You find out that with cassava, very few of us eat the cassava leaves. Maybe we need to have some fairs and things that teach us to eat a lot of our foods in the different. I was in one place where they eat the shoot, they eat the roots, they eat the leaves. For us, there are many of our indigenous.
In Philippines, they do that.
And the Chinese do that.
Yeah.
But you find out that for us, if we eat the roots, then it's the roots we eat. Then the leaves and the other things,
they become residue.
They become residue. Yeah. So we need to explore a lot more of that so that we can eat more of our indigenous things, because we know that it contributes to cost of living. You understand? So, and the research has been done by some of these, So yes, we should re-engineer our taste. You understand? But I mean, of course, if you are doing it and you go ask the bougie people like Rhoda, who's talking about kiwi and things like that, that's a bougie problem. But that's a bougie problem. But the thing is that certain foods that are supposed to be our foods, plantains, bananas are still expensive, and you wonder, why are bananas expensive? Because our people are supposed to be eating these things. Then we need to find out. We need to do that kind of research to find out why are our local foods expensive, and then find ways. But you see, as much as we have petrol prices have reduced for the individual, for those who are buying it from the market women, transport has not reduced.
Why shouldn't it have?
We don't know, because I guess that, I mean, according to the GPRT, if what I hear is right, that the cost is not only about fuel. But I don't bring food from the hinterlands. You understand? So we are talking about that gap between the farm gates and when it gets to the market. I mean, because transport has not decreased. I mean, the price of transport has not decreased. We're not feeling it there. And so that we have to look at. Okay. You understand? But one of the things that I wanted to say, and I agree with him, is, and what the government must do, is to try and change our structure. This Gajisbeg economy, where we are still...
You're using the Akufo-Addo phrase.
Okay, so we are still... our cocoa and our gold and things in still the raw state. Shamima talked about the Davos and the things, and that we should sit at the table. We should sit at the table because, like the man said, Kani, if you are not at the table, then you're on the menu. And if you look at it, we in Africa seem to be on the menu. We seem to be on the menu. It's about time that we looked at things differently in a Pan-African sort of way, that we alone as Ghana, we cannot go at it, and that we must go at it as a continent. Okay. Otherwise, we will be going back and forth, and people will say that they are not feeling things in their pocket and things like that. But we as a continent, if we were to move as a continent, I think some of these things that No, we talk about in terms of cost of living. Look, food in Nigeria is cheaper than food in Ghana.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
You understand?
Yes.
Right, prices of food in,
Nigeria.
But there's good reason as well. They eat their local rice.
Yeah.
There's a point in time. Chicken.
So
I think during the Obasanjo period, they decided to.
Yeah.
I think
So-
at the time we had Kufu as
So
the
we need to
president.
learn from that. You understand? We need to be able to do that. We need to be able to walk through and say that we are one country in continent. So if I don't like what is happening in the Ghana side, I'm walking across to go and live in Nigeria. But I mean, that's on the lighter side. But I think that for us, we need to learn from each other.
Okay.
What are others doing right?
Hadia.
For us to also do the same.
Hadia, why is it difficult for those within the value chain? So we have those who do the importation, whether it's for spare parts or whatever. The Forex is doing very well, or the city is doing very well with the Forex, so the reduction is there. It's reflected in the duty. So onwardly, at the price that you give to the consumer, it should also be influenced. But you will find that the end consumer, after he's gone through the various phases, is buying at a stagnant price. What should we be doing? Do we do market control mechanisms, or what should we do?
Okay, good morning to everybody. Greetings to our Golden House. The United Party is a Golden House. And then I'm applauding our president and the Shamima's government for our government.
All of us here.
Everybody and the president for this hard work. Because I quite remember somebody saying, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. So at least everybody knows that our president is working hard. And I will recommend that every Ghanaian should try and invest in Ghana.
Meaning
It's
what?
Ghana.
Yeah, we have a lot of investors here.
Investors, yes. Now the inflation is stable. Most people should invest in Ghana. We should invest in ourselves. If you go to some of our communities, a community where we have so much tomato, and maybe I am from a community where they produce tomato, and I'm in Accra, and I have a factory in Accra, I can as well think of going to put up a small tomato, maybe processing factory. Even if it's in small quantity, there is an impact in where you are. Let's try to brighten up the corners where we are. I quite remember Nkukon Kitten came, and a lot of Ghanaians were so happy. We were all embracing it. I quite remember trying to get a plot of land and getting a farm as soon as possible. But I was discouraged a little when it came to December, and I realized that most of the chicken fowls in the markets were still there, and people were going for frozen chicken. Even though this year's fowls were a little bit cheaper, people didn't buy.
So consumer behavior.
Consumer behavior. Ghanaians' behavioral change is a very wake-up call for us all, because cost of production now is okay. Ghanaians are producing, but we still want the ones in the shelves which are being air-conditioned. We still prefer chicken which is frozen and is in air conditioning than the ones that are alive, than the ones that are still cheap, and we are encouraging people to produce, to go into farming. We are encouraging people to go into businesses. Meanwhile, we are not patronizing made in Ghana goods ourselves. If you go to the market and you see gari on the tables, people will ask for Nigeria gari no be, Abidjan beans, Togo beans. And
They
they
sell
leave
Nigerian
the Ghana.
gari.
Yes.
Nigerian beans. Nigerian.
If you go to the market,
You mean the one that those are the ones that are packaged?
no, not even
The
packaged.
local
The
market.
local made ones, we prefer the ones that come from outside the country. If you go to Nima markets right now, and on a
ECOWAS markets.
table, on a table. We have Techiman beans, we have Niger beans, we have Togo beans, we have then Ghanaians prefer the ones that are coming from Nigeria, from Niger, you know, and it's a worrying thing for me. I think that we as Ghanaians prefer even ayoyo, the leaves.
We like the Nigeria
We like the Togo ayoyo than the Ghana ayoyo, and we are the women here, and is a little bit slippery than the one that is in Ghana. We will say yoki, you know, yes, and they are just slightly different, but we will go for the one from Togo and leave the one in Ghana. You see, and even with the taste, when it comes to the beans, even with the taste, it's almost the same. But we will prefer the one from Niger and Nigeria than the one from Ghana.
Niger, the landlocked Niger.
Yes.
Yes.
They produce that.
You see,
what do we do?
Even with onions.
What do we do to change in the medium to long term the consumer taste? And
so as Ghanaians, we should start embracing our own. We should, and then it's also a factor that when it comes to transportation, our roads are also very bad. So spare parts are also increasing, and transportation is a worry because if the goods are also in the farmlands, transporting it to the city makes the thing a little bit expensive. So yes, if I'm saying that we should invest in Ghana, it's not about we investing so much money and we are not doing so much. Yes, we are doing so much, but investing as well as if I produce, let's say soap, Madam Rodelin should buy from me.
Okay.
Cost of production in Ghana is a little bit high, so people
it's not a little bit, it's high.
It's high. Yes, it's high. So people would rather decide to go to China to go and produce and bring it back to Ghana, and it makes things a little bit expensive. So as Ghanaians, we should all embrace the fact that made in Ghana goods are also good. It's almost the same taste, is the same farming practices, and we should also adopt the system where farmers use their end products as fertilizers. I kept hearing Professor emphasizing on the fact that fertilizer is being imported when every farm produce can be an end product of a fertilizer. So all these things, we have the researchers in Ghana, they have everything in our coffers. All the ideas are there. We should rather input in action rather than the long talks. We, the market women, should also let us know that it's the same thing. They should stop the differentiating because in Nigeria Niger being so.
You look like you trade in the market a lot.
Yes. Okay. So and then I am a producer as well, and then so I know what I am saying. Okay. When even you go to the flour and the wheat, they tell you the difference and the pricing. So wheat
doesn't come from us. We import them.
Yes, but some of them are lesser expensive. And you know, Ghanaian mindset we think that if something is expensive, then is of value. But it's almost the same. The same nutrition, the nutrients that are in, whether it's expensive or not, is the same, equally the same. And if we are saying that, Auntie Susan is saying that we should eat things that are locally made, things that there are so many dishes that we eat, especially Northerners use the leaves or the peels of yam in making flour. We can try to adapt certain new nutritional or things that are very nutritional, and we can also use. They can also serve the same purposes. Yes.
Nutrition is nutrition.
Yes.
All right.
No matter the price.
You still want to comment the economy? I wanted to go on to the renaming of whether you've come to a conclusion, because now
it's in Parliament. I don't know why we have made, but
it's evoking a lot of mixed feelings.
Let me just say that there are a number of great achievements that we can point to that have all been secured within the past, couple of months, and even if you go back a bit into history, the NDC today is not patting itself on the back and screaming itself hoarse that they have attained these significant, indicators, which are significant for the history of economic management. I mean, this is not the first time that NDC has had a single-digit inflation. I think somewhere in 1999 or so, we had the lowest 2.9. This is not the first time we have had a sustained, decrease in inflation. Between 2010, thereabouts, under President Mills, we had a 33 months or so sustained single-digit inflation. So we understand that these indicators in and of themselves do not solve the problem. But when the economy goes, outright, like we came to inherit, you need to tame it. And to tame it, we have to engage in all the levels of, interventions, from the Bank of Ghana to the Finance Ministry under the direction of President Mahama, to ensure prudent and essential expenditure. Essential expenditure is why today the lights are still on. Imagine if we hadn't managed the indicators to where we are now, where we can boast of, our largest reserve in the history of this country, 13.8 billion. In the midst of all of these chaos, in the midst of paying up our debts, up to the minute, in the midst of almost exiting an IMF program with the greatest plaudits yet in the history of the program's activities in Ghana, you cannot say that we are not spending, because that is the other narrative they continue to insist. So let us be proud that we have left about a 5.7% import cover. Let us be proud that whatever we are doing now is to ensure that whenever some external shocks come, it won't affect us the way that, the economy was so volatile to some of these other external shocks. So we are still on. We have not reached our destination, not by a long shot. We're just calling on Ghanaians to also do their bit. And to be honest, when the indicators are positive, please let it also reflect, because again, if the fuel prices had not reduced, what was going to be the excuse of hiking transport costs? If the dollar had not been tamed the way that it has tamed, 40.7% is the highest appreciation of our, of our cedi against the dollar. These are not trumped up data. They tell a story of a nation that is being consistent, a nation that wants to stabilize, and a nation that is actually stabilizing in order for the real takeoff to happen. So let's, have faith in President Mahama, but let's also be patriotic citizens.
Kotoka.
Patriotic citizens. And talking about patriotism, we'll come to the story of, citizen. Patriotism means that you don't shortchange your fellow citizen. Patriotism means that you don't engage in excessive profiteering habits, to the detriment, because as you're doing that, you would also go and purchase a good or service, and you also, bear the same effect, as you're refusing to reduce transport costs. You yourself, your transport expenditure in the household is also increasing because your family members will go and take transport. Sometimes when we are a bit myopic in our citing of issues, we forget how it comes back to affect all of us. Ghana is the only country we have, and Ghana is in a unique position to once again take up leadership of the continent. Let's do right. Kotoka International Airport to Accra International Airport. The Transport Minister has addressed this matter. It is a legislation that has been brought to Parliament. What happens when a legislation is brought to Parliament is, upon its first reading, is that it will be referred to the relevant, committee. The committee will take memoranda from the general public and key stakeholders. And if amendments are to be made, they will be made. But this is the thinking of, government at this point in time, that it is time to return Ghana's international airport to its original name, Accra International Airport. I think that the kinds of sentiments and arguments that border on tribes and ethnic groups is most unfortunate indeed. Most unfortunate indeed that we want to bring this matter up. But as a Pan-Africanist and as a lover of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and this is my personal view on this matter, I think that history does not stand with the coup makers of 1966. History has not, vindicated that particular halting of Ghana's forward march, irrespective of what the challenges or weaknesses of that first regime was, irrespective of that, the history and the realities subsequent to today communicates one clear thing, that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's tenure, however short it was, has been the most impactful of, and the most enduring and the most impactful. History doesn't bear them out that when the history makers and their allies and cronies got opportunities to lead this country, that they also left, significant, marks in the sands of time that we can glorify them with. Of course, nation building will forever be a continuum. And whatever contributions anyone has made, whether a military government, whether a democratic, government, what is clear for all of us to see is that Nkrumah's overthrow turned this nation backwards by many decades. Okay. And if today there are some arguments not to glorify coup makers, because we don't context the fact that General Kotoka was a coup maker, and to say that to remove the name from Accra International Airport is to do something to history, I think is disingenuous, because the history books already contain these histories. Okay. And the names of all these individuals already sits in our various history books. What is not continuously communicated is that there will be a generation of young people who will not understand why an airport must be named after an individual who we describe as one of the persons who, brought about the first
daughter of Nkrumah
in Ghana.
Direct daughter of Nkrumah. At least your dad worked with him as well, yes. And you were the generation formatively as well. But at the end of the day, history only favors those who were villains or heroes at the time. And the name has stood the test of time. I'm talking about Kotoka because we decided to live with it as a nation. But over time, we've seen that history has been good to Kwame Nkrumah. And that is why we're having this argument. Yeah. I'm sure that by 1980, we wouldn't have been having this argument, even though, but it was also because literature for Kwame Nkrumah had been destroyed at the time of, and then the generation weren't allowed, so to speak, who were new to get to know more. But it also means that we're at, is there a crossroad? Are we divided over this, or is it a straight poignant issue?
Those who want to be divided have always been divided. They've always been on the other side, so it's nothing new. I think that it's a good thing. And I'm even happy that the president, in his wisdom, and the Minister of Transport did not say that Kwame Nkrumah International Airport. Exactly. Because we were expecting that it would be Kwame Nkrumah International Airport. But at least this is a unifying thing to say that it's Accra International Airport. But when I hear tribalism coming into this, it really hurts me.
Who is bringing the tribe?
I hear minority leader, I hear some of the minority MPs. From yeah, those places, talking about tribalism and talking about Voltarians and all that. And I'm asking myself, in the NPP, aren't there Voltarians? How many Voltarians have we heard the NPP acknowledge as having been part of their struggle? But we have Okujeto, lawyer Okujeto there. We have Dr. Nyawo Tamakru, and so many others. We've never heard of them. Nothing, not an edifice, not a road has been named by them. Their governments have come. Kufuor has come. We didn't hear of any Voltarian. Exactly.
When I
we
go to
didn't
his
hear.
house, he has some Yahoo.
You understand?
Close.
Or whatever. But if you see,
The
when it comes to
municipal
those
assembly
closest, if
decided
you
to
come to
move
those
on.
naming of roads, you should go to Ashanti. MPs took all the names. All the roads belong to MPs. Yes. It's not something that is new. You understand what I'm saying?
I get your
so
point.
when I look at all these things and you're talking about Voltarians because Kotoka is a Voltarian, and if we do that, we are going to be we have not been fair to Voltarians because we've not given any prominence to any. Kotoka has Kotoka primary schools. Kotoka has. It's not that he's not been acknowledged.
Indeed, my brother went to
Kotoka primary. Yes, that's Kotoka primary. So it is there within the precincts, but that is even within the precincts of the military. That's left to them. It's their history, whatever they want to do with it. But if it is Ghana International Airport, that is how it's going to be. You understand? And what is it? I mean, people are now referring to the fact that, oh, we are embellishing things for Kwame Nkrumah. 1966, I wasn't a kid. I saw. And I don't think that it was as bad as 8 years or 9 years ago. You understand? What we had. And Roland, let's ask ourselves, is MPP or is the Dankwa Buzia tradition the only political party in this country? You start off from an airport, then you had Kotoka International Airport. You drive, as you are going towards the presidency, you come to a statue that is Buzia. Huh? Then you drive from that, then you come to another statue that is Nana Akufo-Addo's father, as a ceremonial president, has a statue. Then you drive, you get to Dankwa Circle. Then you take the right-hand side. You are going to Akwaje Interchange. Then you go from there.
It used to be Sankara.
It used to be Sankara, and they said we should not glorify coup makers. They didn't see the importance of Sankara, so they changed it to Akwaje Interchange. Fine. Then you move now to Obechabilam Interchange. Then now you go towards Dansoba. You see Amele Tego Circle.
Okay, there's Amele Tego Circle.
Yes. Are they the only people that have ruled this country or they have helped us to get independence? But we have accepted it. Teresa Amele Tego, former MP.
Yes, I know.
You understand? And with all that, Ghanaians have been quiet. We have not said anything.
So they shouldn't complain about this?
So I don't know what it is.
They say it's a misplaced priority.
Yes, it's a misplaced priority. When they were changing Flagstaff House to Jubilee House, it was not a misplaced priority. When they were going around changing university names, it was not misplaced priority.
To still change
you understand? That one was not misplaced priority. Digging a pit was not misplaced priority.
No, but if I remember, it was in Kufuor's administration when we had the grant. And of course, construction was by Shapunji Palonji to build the Jubilee House.
Yes.
And so they decided to name it the Jubilee House to mark our Jubilee.
Why?
As an anniversary.
What's the meaning of the Flagstaff House? Flagstaff House. What is the Jubilee? Jubilee. So in another 20 years. So in another yes. So when it comes, we say the Diamond House. We will raise that Jubilee to something.
It's deliberate?
No, it was deliberate.
It was just a deliberate thing, and you know because after a while, if you listen to Kufuor, sometimes you see that after a while he saw that Kwame Nkrumah was not as bad as those people were saying, so he just had to leave that Flagstaff House there. You understand? Just to please this whole Buzia Dankwa. You see, and we gave them 8 years. 8 solid years of what we would have seen to be what they could have done to this country if they had independence. And what did we? They put us to the pits.
Hey,
there was nothing. 8 years of nothing.
Relax
of bringing us down. I'm wrapping up. And then we just decide not to even give the airport the name Kwame Nkrumah, Accra International Airport. And then you are all over the place talking about.
So you prefer Accra?
I prefer Accra. I am happy with Accra. And we'll say thank you to the Minister of Transport. We'll say thank you to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for this unifying. Unifying name.
Sue, what do you say?
Well,
we have divided public opinion on this. So it's still within the remit of MPP and DC, Gun State, some minorities within the other community also raising.
But I think that the tribal or ethnic aspect is unfortunate. And I don't want to use uncalled for. I mean, to have that kind of conversation in Parliament is the pits. I mean, really, is that the level of conversation that should be going there?
It's the lowest
is low. I don't know about the lowest because I mean things keep going lower and lower sometimes in Parliament, so I can't say that. But it's low. I think that we should, bring up the conversation. Yes, I agree. The name should change. Our gateway to our democracy should not be a name of a coup maker. And when we come to that tribal thing, sometimes I laugh. I said, so was that place named Kotoka because he was an Ewe?
No.
He was not. It wasn't named because he was an Ewe. No. So that's nothing to do with Ewes and Gans and things like that. You understand? Otherwise, everything also in Accra should also be named after a Ga person. Yes. But no, we should not have that. It should not be about this ethnic group and this is our land and we are going to. We should move. We should move away from that. You understand? Because we are, as much as we don't care where people come from, and there are very few. I mean, if you look at our population, I am sure that there are very few pure breeds anymore. Fantis marrying Gans, Gans marrying Ewes marrying Ashantis. We don't have those.
We're becoming more mixed.
We are becoming more mixed, and some people don't care where they come from. So when we do this, it's a certain minority that is doing it, and we have politicians stoking up those fires. It does not bode well for us.
You think it's for their own political interests?
It's for their own, because look, the minority leader talking about that Ewes, etc., etc. What he has forgotten, or he has not adversed his mind to that, in 1993, the same MPP went to the Supreme Court and they declared from 1966, they declared all those coups as illegal. They were at that time they were fighting to have the 31st December this thing changed. Yes, and so we had that from 66. And it was done by Peter Ajete. This is coming from the MPP themselves. So does he not know that? Was he being disingenuous and pretending not to know that they were the same people who say that coup makers should not be glorified? And so that alone should have been enough for. I think maybe that is why he took that ethnic angle. But we shouldn't oppose just for opposing's sake. If the idea is good, the idea is good. And it is not. We should not try and rile up the guns. You understand that? So I mean, let's revert to the status quo ante. Okay. What it was,
so Accra is neutral now.
Accra is
nobody's game.
It's nobody's game.
Well, I'm not surprised, Susan. You know, the minority leader is on record when they went to visit the newly elected flag bearer that in the past year, what they were literally doing was to clutch at straws, and they were really, suffering because they had no direction. And it was their hope that the election of the new flag bearer will provide direction. So it's understandable that they keep throwing at these things. What it communicates to us is that
so Accra, neutral enough.
I think so, but I wish them well with their new whatever. I mean, but
it's not their new whatever. They've elected a flag.
Yes, so I wish them well. That if now they are not going to clutch, if now they are not going to clutch at straws, I would hope that their influence on him will be that they will lift the conversation up in Parliament. And that they would, the theatrics that goes on in Parliament will be reduced. You understand? So if now they have direction, it bodes well for us if they are going to lift their conversation up. But I think that we should not, I heard then also some Voltaireans dancing, we should not buy into that kind of thing. Okay. We should nip it in the bud.
So to you, it's neither here nor there.
It's not. It has nothing. Kotoka wasn't named there because they wanted an Ewe, and then they decided that Kotoka was the most appropriate Ewe to name.
Sorry, I have to give you only 2 minutes.
But we have prominent Ewes that have this thing. Ephraim Amu, isn't it? Yeah. Isn't Ephraim Amu? I think maybe because before Ephraim Amu, you understand, we have prominent Ewes. That are there.
Ewes that were killed during the 1966.
Obviously,
Ewes
who removed the statue of Kotoka.
So, very
what are they talking about? They started the game and we finished it. I think that.
Children of Nkrumah, it's okay. Please. 2 minutes.
I'm a Voltairean as well.
Oh, you are?
Yes, and it doesn't matter if Kotoka is a Rotarian.
Chieftain or not?
Yes, or not.
Or
what is important is we want our future leaders to know that it's not a good thing to be a cool leader, and that you'll be even honored and given a whole airport will be named in your name because that's where you were killed. No, I think it's even been something that has to be had been changed long time ago, and even I quite remember President Kufuor pulling down the statue of Kotoka. I think that time the name should have been changed. Yes, so it's in a very good cause. Coming to Ghana, the first place of welcoming, and you come into the abode of a coup maker. The name is.
So you prefer Accra?
Accra, yes.
So when you're flying and then, from the UK somewhere,
yes,
and it's
Accra
50 minutes to descent, then you can say
Accra International, yes. It's welcoming enough, and we love it.
Party.
We are welcoming it.
I thought you guys were couched out of the ribs of the MPP, so you should be singing their tune.
No, no, never. Never, please. Don't even dream about it.
With all apologies to perhaps the descendants of, Kotoka. The fact is, I don't believe that fathers should eat sour grapes and the children's teeth
no ill feelings, you say,
set on edge. Yes, so this is not to remind them of anything, but it's an objective conversation about what is a prudent thing to do, in our evolving, national story. And so this is not meant to do anything to them. Yes, but
Shamima, thank you very much. Daughter of Nkrumah, foremostly. And then
President Mahama would be addressing the Zambian Parliament later
yesterday
today.
He was being trolled for wearing batakari.
Well, you see why what he's doing is important. They didn't understand what some called it a blouse.
No, but at the end of the day, I think that it speaks volumes to the fact that we need to be well Africanized and conscientized.
And that's what he's doing. Wherever he's going, he's promoting the Ghanaian fugu and everything. They didn't know that fugu was a rich African.
All right. I have a couple of messages. Shamima, thank you very much. Rodel Inayana, thank you as well. And then Gloria, Hajia Gloria Amenu as well. And then Susan Idua Mankwa, thank you as well. So I have Neo Degatu Kwe. Please ask Shamima whether the Ghana Airways is also being considered by this government to be brought back.
Yes.
Did you? Oh, it's being considered. Yes. Oh, okay.
There was a committee set, and even the transport minister
I think I read something
gave us an indication of a timeline.
And then Sam says that inflation fell from 5.4, not 5.12. Okay. All right. So those corrections will be made. Kofi Amenin Kukru says inflation, again, the correction should be 5.4. I didn't notice when I was on air. And a couple more as well. But thank you for your views. I can also see a couple more, the 2,300 people who are watching. A couple of them have given out. I see Yao February says our own Shamima Muslim. Hey. Obrimpon Kaba says, keep things being lower and lower in Parliament. Hey, Mami Bagbin. Bagbin will not be happy. It's a parliamentary. It says, Mommy, Bagbin will not be happy with you. And then Elliot Kalal says, I wish the statue of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is built in front of the Accra International Airport. More controversies. More children of Nkrumah are watching. And then Equal Rights says, Apenyo Makin is not playing tribal politics, citing a words against the NDC, but it was the NDC that placed Dr. Ephraim Mahmoud's picture on the 2CD. No, the MPP came to remove the 2CD note from the system. Hey. Everybody.
History lessons are coming.
Yao February again says Susan Idwama, Madam Susan. And then Elijah Kute seems to think that we need to have a price control regime and items need to be scaled to help achieve.
On some items.
On some items.
I think so.
Yao February says we love all views. Yao February. Good morning to you. So I see that you've commented a lot about well. Obren Ponkaba, Prince Nani Ao York, New Diatukwe, Evans Ibn Samba, I see all of you. Thank you all for watching. We're going to bring